And we're live.
Alrighty, good evening everyone and welcome to another episode of Third Eye Mind Group. Thank you for joining us this evening. Remember, we were three friends that are also transformational trainers that decided that we were having such great conversations amongst ourselves on Zoom before it was cool that we thought we would bring this live to you as well. So here we are again for another week. And we are very excited. Chris Delgado, Millie Huser, and myself, Chris Austin, are very excited to have our guest with us here tonight. He is Dr. Ray Blanchard. He, I call him like a virtuoso trainer, a little step above master trainer. He's phenomenal, he's wise, he's brilliant. He's also was our trainer, he was our teacher, our mentor, everything that we know. He started it all and he taught us on her journey and on our journey. So we're excited and I don't want to waste any more time. So Dr. Ray Blanchard, thank you for being here this evening.
Well, it's a pleasure. And I'm so proud of the three of you. Really got your own show going and rocking it. And what I'm so proud of you about is that when we went into this social upset period, you didn't skip a beat. You just got creative and said, hell, let's go for it. And did some new things. And that's the thing that we wanted people to do anyway, from learning to be a trainer. And that's what you have to be in a training, when you're in a training. And that's what you got to do in your life when you're not in a training room. In a way, you're always a trainer, even out of the training room, because that's who you are. That's what you're just coming from, where you naturally come from in life. But in life situations where you're not in a training room, you're got to be creative just like everybody else. You got to handle stuff. So I'm real proud of you that this is what you're doing, and it sounds like it's reaching a lot of people. So congratulations, all of you. I'm really glad to be here with you. We don't get to hang out like this as friends that often. So I feel like I'm kind of cheating in a way. I get to hang out with three of you, and it's really cool. So I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you for all that. And you know, we decided, as I was saying to you a little bit earlier, to bring you on here because not only, you know, are you a friend and a mentor and a teacher and our trainer, what's happening in the world right now, you were the first person that came to our mind to reach out to and have a purposeful, you know, conversation that's going to serve humanity right now and what's happening, because it's serious. It's serious what's happening out there. And you know, you've lived through this a few times and then some, probably, with, you know, all the generations that you have.
Is that where you
a little bit. A little bit. You're the old guy on the block. Let's just be real, Ray. You're the old guy on the block.
Thinking how you do that.
I was
trying to just be, yeah.
I was going to say wise, but she said old. I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, you're old, you're wise, you've been around, and you've lived through this. Like, I remember hearing a bunch of your stories, you know, of back in the day, and then recently you wrote a couple articles. So we just wanted to bring you on here to hear, you know, from your perspective of what's going on in the world. And then our viewers we'll ask some conversations along the way, and then we might chime in too. Probably can't keep us three quiet. So we'll probably, you know, chime in along the way.
I feel like I'm on good behavior just because Ray's
I know.
gone.
I was gonna say, Chris Delgado, you're kind of sitting up straighter tonight.
I know. I'm like, wait, Ray's on.
I
Hold
know
on.
how sassy the three of you are. And you won't keep your mouth shut too long.
He knows us well.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you just want to, you know, give like your perspective on what's happening out there.
Well, you know, first of all, give respect to George Floyd and his family. And this is their time. And I just want to respect that, first of all. And it's happening at the same time that the coronavirus is also out in the public pandemic. So we got a kind of a double whammy that made life really complex. And how do you navigate yourself through all that complexity? I think that's what most people are, where most people are at. And as for me, it hits home personally. Being a Black man, I go through a lot of things that a lot of people don't know about, or they would probably take for granted. And I think what this is doing is revealing what some of that's like. I just saw CNN the other day. One of the major companies put on a video called The Look. And it showed people doing that look when they see a Black person walk into the room. Doing that look when you see a Black trainer show up at 250 people and they're basically all white. That look. Or that look when I go to New Zealand or Australia, someplace like that, and they know Dr. Ray Blanchard is coming and they think it's Ken Blanchard. White guy, big white guy.
Yeah.
And then I show up in the room and it's Ray Blanchard, and you should see all these Brits and Scottish executives and around the world. You should see their look when I walk in front of the room. It's the look. The look communicates a lot. And a lot of people don't realize that they're doing it. And they do it innocently to some degree, but that's what we mean. You have passive biases and don't know. So a lot of people like myself, we go through that every day. It's just like if you were to walk into a saloon in the ghetto, and you just walk in there innocently, they would do that look on you too. And you would know what that look means. It might be intimidating to you. It might be that they're accepting you. It might be that they're ready to attack you when you walk out an hour later. So you wonder what the look means. So I think this is, for Black people like myself, it's revealing the things that we go through. And for a lot of people who are not Black or brown, they are getting wind of what really goes on, that they might have been unconscious biases, unconscious racists, unconscious, period. So I'm really kind of glad that this is being revealed, although I'm not glad that George Floyd lost his life. But I'm glad this is being revealed because we can have a real conversation about real stuff that we all go through. And yes, I've been through a lot of life situations coming along. You know, I grew up in the South. And I remember when Emmett Till got killed. I was 7 years old. And I walked to the mailbox and picked up the magazine to bring it home to my mom because we lived out in the country. So I had to go out, out the driveway out to the road to get the mail. But she wasn't in the house, so I just sat on the front porch and started looking at this magazine. And the cover showed how mangled he was as a human being. And I was totally shocked and realized that that could happen to me. Because people burn crosses on our houses, around our house and things like that. So it started out for me at a very early age. I remember going on a trip around in Florida, actually, Florida in the southeastern part of the United States when I was in junior high school, to get these guys from the inner city, kids from around the nation. I was one of the top 2 people in the state of Missouri. And they took 2 kids from each state on this kind of trip to expose them to business of what you could become as a Black kid in life that you weren't exposed to. So we're going to expose you to all this stuff, take you to companies, take you around, to visit people. And I remember we took a train and then a bus, and we ended up in Birmingham. And they let us off the bus to all go to the bathroom. And they had these 2 signs out there, whites only and Negroes. And it didn't make sense that I couldn't go to whatever bathroom I wanted to. But it really dawned on me, oh my God, this is the time I better go to the Negro bathroom or whatever happened to Emmett Till may happen to me. So, you know, I've been through this many times. I've been through all the riots in the 60s and all of that. So I got an opinion about a lot of things. It's an important time. As of right now, the world will never be the same again. There are not many periods in life where you can look at it and say, this world is already shifted. You'll never be able to be blind again. You know, when you wake up to something, you can never go unwoke.
Right.
You got to be woke to that forever.
Yeah.
And the way human beings, black, white, brown, no matter what, are going to interact with each other going forward is going to be with a new kind of awareness, like it or not. Some people are not going to like it. Believe me. And some of these systems in our society are definitely going to change because the protesters are not going to let this go. You know, you got to strike while the iron is hot. And they're striking while the iron is hot right now. And there are going to be some laws and bills passed and some things going on for the next couple of years that are going to change the life we took for granted. And some people are not going to like it.
Ray, do you notice a difference like in the protests that are happening today, like to say that things are going to change? Like, do you notice anything different than like, say back in the 60s, you know, or any other time that you see as distinct as far as people go today?
Well, yeah, a couple of things. One is that in the 60s, it was huge. It was the biggest thing we'd seen, civil rights movement at that time. It was a tough time going through life in the civil rights movement because the earth was moving under your feet and you didn't know what was happening. Do you realize it was only in the 1960s that we, Black folks, were even able to vote?
Right.
Yeah.
That's like less than 60 years ago.
Crazy.
We weren't even able to vote. The Voting Rights Act and all the civil rights and civil rights movement were about a series of things about literally legitimizing us as human beings in this country. That's huge. So the stakes were high. The stakes were high in terms of Black men and women and brown men and women even have a legitimate right to exist as a voting citizen rather than a slave or an indentured slave or someone who didn't matter at all that you could get rid of, even fire them or even hang them. So this was like a huge watershed moment in the 60s. Well, we've come a long way, but in some ways we haven't come any further. Because even though we're able to vote now, they got ways of repressing Black and brown votes. And the mentality of repressing brown and Black votes, what kind of human being is that would do that, first of all? And I don't want to name any of the senators' names right out loud necessarily, but what kind of hateful human being would even consider repressing people's vote? What would you think about somebody repressing your vote or any of your votes? So it's still going on a lot of levels. And when you see all these young Black men, 1,000 a year being killed by cops and stuff, most people in your world don't even consider that. You don't even have to think about that. And we do think about it. So again, the stakes are high, but at another level. Now it's about, okay, we can vote now, but now you get to get your knee off of our neck. And I think that's where we're at. Get your knee off of our neck so we can breathe, so we have some space, so our kids can have some space, so our kids can feel free to live their life and live their dreams. So now it's the stakes are high again, but this time around, it's a lot more mixed people standing for it. Like you're having me talk about it. 60 years ago, you being a white woman, you wouldn't have had me on your show talking about this. So the world has changed, but now there are more people of mixed races standing for freedom for all people and equality for all people, because they see that, first of all, it's wrong. And secondly, it forces them and invites them to redefine who they are if they can't be superior and supreme, and if they have to just be equal with everybody else. You'd have to redefine yourself. And I'm proud of the white people who do that, because they're willing to. They're willing to stand for that, to redefine myself and learn how to reinterpret how to relate as a human being on this planet without entitlement of that kind. And I'm willing to do it. So I'm really, really excited about that. So this time around, there are a lot more people who are in the process of reinventing who we are all together as a human race. And that's exciting.
Yeah, I think it's important what you're saying, because, you know, I was talking last week and I was saying to Chris and Millie today that, you know, this has woken me up, because here I am walking around, you know, thinking I don't have, like, that I get it, that I accept Black people, brown people, that I get it, but I didn't get it. You know, like, I knew that I had white privilege. I was clear that I had white privilege and that there were things I didn't have to worry about. And, like, the more I talked to my friends and what they had to teach their kids as brown or Black, like how to, like, if you get pulled over by a police officer, I never had to be taught that. You know, like, ways to be, if I was to get pulled over by a cop, it was just give them your license and registration and don't talk back. But there's so many steps that people that I know had to teach their kids that I didn't have to go through, or, you know, different, wearing hoodies, you know, wearing different clothes, like going to certain places. And it's woken me up. And I said last week that I think I fell asleep to the white privilege. I fell asleep that I had that, you know, like that I had that and was walking around like doing that. And then I told these two ladies today that, you know, I grew up, like, you didn't talk about this stuff. You didn't talk about religion and politics. And it was like, you know, a faux pas. You don't talk about it. And I said to these two that I have been silent with opinions because of professional things, right? Like afraid that people would judge professionally, or it wasn't the right thing to do on social media, or what, you know, anything like that. And then in the meantime, I see all of this stuff happening, but, like, I didn't voice my opinion and say, like, no more, you know? And I feel that this, for me at least, has given me permission to let go all of those limiting beliefs that I had of growing up, and now speaking out and using my platform to be an ally, you know, with yourself and my friends that are on here and out there, because it matters. Like you said, it matters now that there's many different colors and people that are joining, you know, this movement.
Yeah, that's really cool that you're waking up. We're all waking up. Mm-hmm. And I want to applaud everybody who's waking up. And, you know, I got a lot of energy invested in this conversation and this reality, but I don't want to show up like a victim. And I think that's a fine line for a lot of people, particularly brown and black people. How to not show up like a victim. Because those of us in the transformational movement, to have someone complain about something, an injustice, truly a real issue, you run the risk of your peers in transformation calling you a victim. So stop being a victim. And so what you do is that you shut up on the things that you really think matter, like this is a real issue, because I don't want to be called a victim. And so in a way, you don't do what you think you really should have done. So to me, to some degree, I go through some guilt of not speaking up for things that I think I should have spoken up for. And it might be just my opinion, but like I've kind of gotten blackballed out of a couple of training companies, and for a story on the front, but I know there's a story on the back too. But I wasn't able to speak about the story on the back side of that. I had to deal with the story on the front side of it. But I know it was going on, and it's gone on so much in my life, and I silenced myself and didn't speak up because I wanted to be accepted. And I didn't want to be called a victim because I teach about not being a victim.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a catch-22. So do you actually speak up about things you want to complain about, or some of the people who are kind of amateur transformational people call, well, you're just being a victim, which is just kind of bullshit. It's not what we really were teaching at all. Excuse me for saying here. You want
we swear on here all the time.
You're good. You're good.
But you know, the other thing too is I deal with being gay as well.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like equality for gays as well. So I've got like several horses in this race.
It's like Black Lives Matter, Gay Pride Month. You're just hitting all of them this month, right?
I'm hitting all of them.
Well,
You know, so I got a lot of experience. You want to know a lot of experience? I got a lot of experience, a lot of stories.
Well, you're from St. Louis as well. So I'm from St. Louis, and I was sharing with them recently that growing up in St. Louis and having been in a relationship with someone that was outside of my race in the 90s, I was called a race traitor. Like literally, that was like banishable. You know, it was, and my asleepness had me think that we've come so far, because my son has been out and gay since he was 14. He's married. He has these rights that he didn't have. And I see interracial couples now, and people don't have the same kind of things. You know, my friends are lesbians. They walk hand in hand with their partners. And I knew that we weren't there yet, but I had told myself we've come so far that who am I to complain? Or, you know, and I stopped playing the game. Like I stopped pushing the ball forward and I rested. And in that resting, I woke up. It was funny because it wasn't, not funny, haha, but ironic. It wasn't George that I had my most awakening. It was watching Ahmed Aubrey. And I couldn't help, and every time I couldn't help but think of my own sons. Like in some way, when I saw that video, I saw my own children. Like I saw my 26-year-old sons running, and I saw that they would stop and have water, that they would, what would the fear be in them if someone tried to stop them, 3 men in a truck with guns tried to, like, I just couldn't. And I realized in that moment, I was like, and my arrogance that we had come so far, and my resting and waiting for the next generation to take over, that I let that man die. Like, I mean, on my watch. And I don't say that to be like a martyr, but I wasn't a stand in the way that I feel like I could have been, in the sense, had I not been so arrogant. And so I think that is something that I would imagine many of us, our mothers, are waking up to. Like I see Chris shaking her head as well. Many of us mothers, and then I'll be honest, like I haven't been able to get fully through George Floyd's video. I've even sat in silence. I get to a certain point and I feel so, it just brings such something in me. I would imagine that too, that wakening of the mother, whether you had given birth or not, it wakes up something inside of you that says, no fucking more. You cannot kill our children anymore. It is not happening.
Well, you being from St. Louis, you know Ferguson.
I do. I grew up a stone throw away, right
Yeah,
there,
I was a
right there
stone
at
throw away.
270 and Florissant Road.
Oh, really? Okay. Well, you were at the stone throw away. And, a lot of my family got beauty shops and everything right on that same,
Pies, companies, yep.
right in Florissant, right in that area. So, and I grew up in St. Louis, kind of like on the west side of St. Louis, right out by Washington University.
Yep.
So I kind of had it both ways, University City, Washington University, St. Louis, that little triangle. I could be in the black neighborhood, I could be in the white neighborhood, I could skip back and forth. And of course I went to school at Washington University. So but Ferguson was only a short distance from there. But as a Black person growing up in the city, you just learn this stuff. You just learn survival skills. Mm-hmm. And the good news is, because there's good news about a lot of this too, oddly enough, I learned how to be very resilient. I learned how to be a chameleon when I needed to be a chameleon. I learned how to perform what I needed to perform. So I learned and put a lot of tools in my hip pocket, Now, if young Black men and young white men and brown men were to learn that adversity isn't a finality, but it's an opportunity for you to learn adaptability. And if you're smart, you'll learn adaptability. But the bad news about learning adaptability, you can get lost in being a chameleon and lose track of who am I really. Mm. And so that's why you need these transformational trainings, because you need to go back and look at what are the beliefs I developed that are ingrained and I'm on automatic to, and don't even realize I'm having them. But also, what are the acts I've put on? What's the act I've created for myself? And do I even know who I am, or is my act what I think I am? So personal growth training allow you to go in and see and separate out the acts, the beliefs, and who am I really?
And it's like a full...
Yes, you can get down to who are you really, then you can utilize the acts and all the other stuff as resources rather than being run by them. So learning resilience and knowing that you did that, that's the takeaway, the positive takeaway, although the price you pay for it is severe.
And it's full circle, because seeing you and Millie on here and talking Missouri and you being from there, and Ray is actually a trainer for the transformational company that I own, and we're going to Missouri. So it's just really cool thinking about what you're talking about, and it's going to be full circle there when we can be back in person again. And Tori Michaels is on here, who actually lives in Missouri. She's all excited on here going, Missouri, Missouri, and she's posting, and she said, yesterday I was in Maplewood in St. Louis, and I found myself in the company of several Black men. I became aware of the love and compassion that is awake in my heart now, and I greeted each man with good morning. It was something I would not have done in the past, and it's time to really see each other now. So she just wanted to let that in. And Chris, I don't know, there's some questions on here. If you usually like to do that, read those questions.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. We have Maureen Downs, who's asking Ray specifically, once aware of our white privilege, Ray, what's the next step we can all take?
Oh, great question, because I'm asking that in the next article I'm writing.
Oh, awesome.
There you go.
I don't want to give away my article. You're gonna have to read my article on my Facebook page.
And we'll post those.
We'll post those. You send us the links.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm working on that. So what do you do? How do we handle this? And what does anybody do? Well, first of all, I think just learning, first of all, to greet everybody as the miracle that they are. And training yourself to see the miracle. Because your socialization will want to color your lenses. And that's a practice and a discipline. And learning how to just smile, learning how to be real with people and be yourself. That's one thing. I think the other things that you can do is get engaged in fruitful conversations like this, and not just be an opinion junkie and going in those conversations to state your opinion, but going into conversations like that to listen and to learn. Because if you get in with a Black person, brown person, and if a brown person gets in a conversation with you, the instinct is to be guarded and right and opinionated and push your point of view. But if you could listen and learn, everybody will walk away having learned, but the other person will walk away having been listened to. And I think a lot of Black people, brown people, in their gut, no matter how the media try to spin it, and no matter how our legitimate protesters spin it, underneath, people want to be listened to. You know, we talk about reparation, Black reparation. I think we should do something about that. But even if we did something about it on the outer layer, it's a Band-Aid because you cannot change the past. But still, it needs to be done. But even if it's done, underneath it all, what we're listening for is, are you apologizing? Mm. Are you asking for forgiveness? And are you available for me to ask for forgiveness from you? And that takes a different kind of listening. And that takes a different kind of understanding of what's below the surface. We get too carried away paying attention to the acts and actions and things on the surface that are really, really true and important, but we forget, now what's that really all about? What are they really underneath gonna still be unhappy with, even if we fix the surface stuff? And I think that's the forgiveness and asking to be forgiven, expressing forgiveness, and hearing the human being in each other. And if the only thing that you and I can do without going to the formal reparation is to sit with each other in conversations and listen generously, be listened to, and walk away with some knowledge you might not have had going in. Now, if you want me to talk a little bit later about some of the other systematic things you and we can do, we could talk about those too, because I think there's systematic racism, and then that being racism in the systems. But I'm now really talking about that personal and interpersonal dynamics that any woman, a man can do.
I love that you're saying that. Last week we had a big conversation about simply listening with the intention of hearing the other party and like asking for forgiveness. It's awesome. As soon as you brought that up, I'm like looking at Chris Austin going, are you hearing what I'm hearing? Which is amazing. And then we have another question too that says, so how do we move away from Band-Aids and actually address the roots of the problem, which you were speaking into, but what do you think? How do we move away from Band-Aids and actually address the roots?
We all got to get more mature. We all got to grow up, and we all got to see below the surface. And we got to be committed to that and not be duped, not be fooled, and not be fools, just looking at the surface of things. And understanding that there's more to any issue than what's on the surface. Just like there's more to you, each individual, than what we see on this screen right now. There's a real person underneath with real issues and real things going on in your life that no one would ever know or no one would ever see. So I think all the issues are like that. You're just seeing the silhouette or seeing the face of things, but understanding what's underneath is what helps you fix it at the source. So we got to go to the source of things rather than so much attention to the surface of things. And you know what, while I'm on it, I just might as well express my opinion about a lot of our politicians. Some of them.
Oh
Why
boy.
not? Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Let's have it. Let's have it.
Let's get we're getting real now.
Just have me come. Let me go to Congress. Ray goes to Congress. Oh, like, guess who's coming to dinner? Like, well, some of our politicians are so shallow. It's like they don't even know what's going on, some of them. But then that makes us even shallower because we elected them.
Yeah.
And so I got to look at myself, but we got to look at ourselves like, who in the hell did we put in that position?
The scariest thing to me sometimes when I look, and it's not a left or right thing, when I look at politicians and I think this is a representation of who we are as Americans, I just want to go, oh my gosh. And it's nothing personal. It's just when I watch and I think, where are they getting their information? What planet are they from? Because I must be getting my information from some completely different source.
Well, it just shows you there's more than one way to be asleep. It's not just racism asleep. We're asleep in that, oh my God, this is who we elected. Oh my God, this is who I was allowed to be elected. Because if we don't vote, I'm going to push that. If we don't vote, if we don't educate ourselves to who we're voting for, we're being complicit in all this racism and everything else. And I want to say this to people: silence is violence, and violence kills. So if you're silent, then you're just as complicit. It's just like when we're in some of these trainings and people say, well, I decided I'm not playing. Well, are you for real? Not playing is playing. That's a certain kind of way of playing. So we can't anymore just be silent and act as if we're not playing. So my goodness, some of these politicians are so shallow, but I think part of their shallowness is intentional, because if they act shallow and silent, they won't be challenged by their base. And then that's a way for them to protect their base. It's not that they don't know what's going on. It's just that they're more interested in their base and getting reelected and protecting, their own ass, and they are not willing to look to the real issues underneath, because it might cost them.
Well, and let's be real. Look at some of the people, what it has costed people for standing. And so I've never been one that's like, oh, you standing, as the source isn't going to be painful for you. Look, I mean, there's some real stuff that's happened to people who's like way worse than lost elections. We're talking about loss of life, loss of liberty, loss of freedom that happens. And we think, well, not in our world, but absolutely in our world. That's happening. And so how do we support those who do want to stand and be in honor and stand for the Constitution, which you write a lot about, and I'm so appreciative of that, because in a two-party system, I feel like I don't have choice. I have two options, and neither one of those options look great to me. And I want to protect the Constitution because it's beautifully written for us to live in liberty. But
it brings me, Millie, to say that. And now, because, Ray, you're saying get out and vote. It matters, like, get out and not be silent. So many times, like in the last month, 2 months, I've heard people say, I'm just going to move to another country. That frustrates me, right? It frustrates me because I'm like, well, how about we make the difference here, right? Like, how about we make the difference here?
Girl.
Don't go mess up that country. You are part of the creation of this country. Don't go to another zip code and run that zip code. Stay in your own zip code and clean it up first.
Yeah, I'm like, could we all just figure it out here before we go corrupt somewhere else and like take all of this, like, because it's just like, what do you mean you're going to move to another country? Or people are saying, oh, the votes don't matter anyway, and then they're really not voting.
Oh, and then not voting is voting. Not making a choice, making a choice.
That is voting.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
And then they get on and they preach about our politicians, and we're like, you don't have the right if you're not out there voting.
And then they complain.
Right.
Now, guilty.
Monday morning quarterbacks, Chris Austin.
Guilty. I've done it in earlier parts of my life. I did it too, so I understand. So I'm not mad at y'all. I'm not mad at anybody. But
I am. I'm kidding.
I understand. And, you know, I think that's the important thing is that learn to understand and have the wisdom to understand and not have people be condemned for any mistake they made or just lack of awareness or, you know what, not even condemn people for not having guts.
Yeah.
You know, we get on our high horse and act as if everybody's got guts and they should use their guts. There are some people, including myself at times, haven't had the guts.
Yeah.
And want to be understood for that too, and have some compassion for that too.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about white privilege. In a certain sense, being a trainer, being a transformational trainer, having a doctoral degree, having had experience, having had people pick me up and take me under their wings and bring me this far as my career. I've had the privilege of living places I wanted to live. I've had the privilege of doing incredible jobs around the world. I'm really thankful. I'm so blessed. But that can also lead to a false Black privilege. It's kind of like white privilege, being white, but not ever being white. It's like you got the opportunity to live out in the county, or you got in the suburbs. You got the opportunity to go to Starbucks whenever you want. You got the opportunity to buy your ballet shoes or the Hugo Boss suits. You got the opportunity to drive your BMW and etc. You can kind of forget about what's happening in the ghetto that you might have come from, or you can forget about, you can turn a blind eye to what's really going on. I got friends who turn a blind eye. I got friends I know to this very day that might even be listening to this presentation who turn a blind eye. Because we've had the privilege to do it. Like once you kind of made it, you can kind of do your thing. However, you don't ever really make it because there's some people on top of you who won't let you into that club. Mm. But you can be in that in-between club, kind of like I'm better than the low club, but I just haven't made it to the high club. So I'll be in the middle club, which is kind of cool, kind of good. It could allow you to have the same kind of entitlement on another level and the blindness on another level. It's kind of like what we say, got your roots.
Yeah, you forgot where you came from.
You forgot where you came from. It's, you know, I've had moments I've gone there because I've been so thankful to have the opportunity to make it to the next level. And that preoccupied me. I didn't have time to go back to my roots. And can you forgive me for a moment? Can you forgive me for having had to do that? And that's the sadness I experience of having had to do that, because there are a lot of people don't speak about this. They won't ever tell you about it. They are doing this and they've had to do this and they're ashamed that they did it and they hope nobody mentions it. But it's real too. And that's a kind of racism as well. And that's a kind of abandoning ship, so to speak. And we got to have some compassion for the people who did that because they know better or knew no better. But this is an opportunity for them to wake up to that and get the kind of guts that it's going to take to stand up in spite of risking losing that.
Yeah. It's so, I love the way you said that, because there's been a lot on the news where there's been famous people of color who've come out in the past and said, you know, I made it, so can you. And I think there's been some backlash. Even if they did it 10, 15 years ago, people are now putting it out there as like a evidence of why, you know, Black lives don't matter, evidence of this or that. And what it reminds me of, something that I remember hearing in the training, probably from you at some point, is that it's hard to get from 98% to 100. Because that 2% seems so small compared to how far you've come. Like, it's actually easier to get from 10 to 75 than it is 98 to 100. And I could see where there would be such a fear. I have the fear, like associating myself with certain people from where I came from is going to bring me down. Like, I feel like I can't bring them up. They're going to bring me down. And so I see how that mechanism working in my own life, and how if I'm not willing to give up that 98%, I'm never going to get the 100. Unless I'm willing to give up some of the things that I have right now, my creature comforts, unless I'm willing to give those up, I'm never going to fully see my vision manifest in the world. I'm not going to see harmony on this planet as long as I'm unwilling to give up my creature comforts. And I haven't been able to. And something you wrote in your article that I thought was very interesting, you talked about COVID-19 was the alarm, and then George Floyd was the jolt. And I thought about that a lot this last couple of days, about how, had COVID-19 not happened, would I have even been this bothered by the recent deaths of I mean, I remember being upset about Michael Brown because it was in my literally my family's backyard. Like, it was really right there, grew up in that area, knew all the streets. So that it affected me in one way, but I don't remember feeling the way I feel now. I don't remember having this experience of like I can't breathe. Like, I can't breathe. Like, and had it not been this environment that I'm in right now, along with all the other white people, would we be even having this flashpoint? Or would it just be another Black man dying as a result of police brutality?
Well, you know, the universe is brilliant, isn't it? And we say there are no accidents. And it's God is in everything. Allow me to go there now.
Everything goes here, Ray. Everything goes.
Right. You know, my husband says that to me all the time. He's like, God is either everything or he's nothing. He's either everything or nothing. And I have to remember that all the time. Everything or nothing.
And God is in everything. God is in the death. God is in COVID. God is in the waking up. God is in the storms. God is in life. And it's all working out. We just don't understand how it's working out. And we're waking up to a larger consciousness, a larger awareness, to be able to encompass that and embrace that in our understanding of the universe, understanding of the human universe, understanding of consciousness itself, rather than consciousness as a fad, but consciousness as something to be awake to on an ongoing basis and appreciate the glory of everything that's going on before us. Mm-hmm. Because it is going on before us. And we just don't understand how to put that together with our circumstances that we take personally. But I don't know that you would have felt the same about George Floyd's death had COVID not happened. It's almost like COVID happened to warm you up and for the knockout punch.
Really
to set you up for the knockout punch. And so there's some consciousness smarter than us at times. But it's all fitting within a pattern. It's a grander scheme of things than our own personality. But you know, this is one of the things I want to just say on this call while I got a chance to, is we can't let protesting become a fad. You know, it started out with Black people protesting. Before you know it, the white supremacists and the anarchists got wind of that and say, they're gathering and protesting. We want to make them look bad anyway. So let's just join them and bring our hammers and our skateboards and knock out a few windows and let some of these uneducated, ignorant people go out and Black, white, and brown, loot every place. And then everybody will think that the protesters did that, and look at these protesters. So they piggybacked off the protesters. Right. And then made the protesters look bad. And it undermined the whole game for a minute until we woke up to it. Mm-hmm. But get this, it got so popular over the world, these protests and the issues, that some of my wealthy non-Black friends felt guilty, and so they started writing articles, and I better do something too. And then the next one, well, I better too. Now, some of them were very, very sincere, but others didn't want to get left out of the party. And other ones didn't want to look like they didn't care, and their brand would suffer, and etc. But then, so they started doing just enough to look like they were doing something because it was popular, but they didn't do enough to have their brand be screwed up. And so they hang out in that in-between kind of faddish protesting. And I think when we allow protesting of the real issues to become mainstream like that, they lose their punch and they lose their meaning and they lose power, and it becomes an old conversation that goes nowhere. And we can't let that happen. We can't let the issues that we're really talking about become just mainstream and everybody call, I was in it too, I did it too, I marched too, I did too. So what?
Yep.
You know,
I need to stop you right now. Let me just real quick interrupt you. I love this whole conversation, and there's like so much more that I've wanted to ask you, and we didn't have a chance with your article. I love the whole would love to have another conversation about the whole deleting the word versus. I loved that part of your article. Yes. I actually have another commitment at 8, so I need to jump off of this, but I wanted to just thank you, and I so enjoy listening to you and miss you so much, and like, thank you, Papa Ray, for being on here. Love you, love you, love you, and we get to do this again, but right now I have to jump. So ladies, thank you, and
we'll see you next week.
Tomorrow. And Ray, I love you.
She's always doing that to us. She's always doing that.
She always leaving.
You know.
She's
like to get out.
We're gonna cover for you anyway.
I like to leave the people wanting more. You know how.
That's right. That's right. Bye,
Chris.
I love you. but Ray, what you're talking about is so fascinating, because we were actually having a talk earlier today. It was the three of us and Jay Ehrlich. Remember our little buddy Jay?
Oh, hello.
Yeah, he was on here watching a little bit ago. I think he still is, and we were all talking about exactly what you were just saying, that. And it's becoming like the trendy, right? Like, we don't want it to become the trendy. And then like what I'm noticing too is people are making merchandise, right? They're making merchandise and making money off of Black Lives Matter and selling t-shirts and whatever it may be. And I was saying earlier that, like, where does that draw the line for me? You know, because I was sitting here like, I personally, I'm not going to go make a t-shirt and now start selling it that says, you know, Black Lives Matter on it. However, you know, I shared with all of them that, you know, in my company, what we're doing is we're donating to the NAACP and the Black Lives Matter Foundation. We're donating directly to there and going to ask our community to do that as well, because once I learned that there were so many people sitting in prisons of brown and Black skin that just can't afford to get out and pay the fee, I was like, well, I got to do something like about that. And I know I have a lot of people behind me that I want to put that in some, you know, games we play around here, you know, and that's my way of doing things, you know, and taking action. But I was curious on what your opinion was on that, and where is that line of insulting, right? Like insulting people with creating, you know, merchandise or whatever it may be. Is there a line there? And I want to hear it from someone like you, because I got my own opinion on it, you know?
Yeah, well, we can't draw a line and legislate people not crossing that line. Mm-hmm. We don't have the power to do that. We don't have the authority to do that. Mm-hmm. But what we do have authority is to have a voice. And we have an authority to say, what the hell are you doing? Or just shout out to somebody and say, you asshole, or whatever, and let them know that. I was in the earthquake in San Francisco in 1989, and I was at the Candlestick Park for the World Series.
The A's and the Giants, right?
Yes, when it all came down.
Yeah.
And we got out of the stadium and got into the parking lot. And there were fissures this wide in the ground in the parking lot, and people being careful. And there was a jerk tailgating in the parking lot, selling water to people who needed water because of their shock and things going on. He was selling them water rather than giving them water. I was so glad that a couple of people just shouted him out and said, "What the hell are you doing, jerk?" So I think we have the authority to have a voice. We don't have authority to stop people from doing that and making money on it, but we have authority to call out injustice when we see it. Or we have the authority to not participate in that and to let them know that we're not participating. Now, whether they do something about it or not, we can influence it from that point of view.
Well, the thing, the beauty of capitalism, and going back to, civil rights, was boycotting was such a powerful tool used in the civil rights movement because of transportation. And I think about that, and there's been times where I'm like, I get in my shit about capitalism at times, but then I'm like, remember when they tried to ban transgender people in, what was it, North Carolina, and they got all of the everything pulled from that, out of North Carolina. West Palm pulled out, Walmart pulled out, March Madness pulled out. So there's some upsides to it, and we really have a lot more power as human beings than we give ourselves credit for.
Like Blackout Fridays and stuff like that. We have power. But the thing that I want to say about this is that power is when we stand together. And that's what my articles are all about.
100%.
And that's what my Hero's Quest is all about. And guys, I do the Hero's Quest, and it's about standing together and learning the principles of existence. We are power in together. It's like united we stand, divided we fall. But what we do sometimes in transformational people and other people in the world, we don't stand together, we go after our own, and then we have no power and we don't have any leverage. The name of the game, ladies and gentlemen, is leverage. Leverage socially, leverage financially, leverage in all of your affairs is developing leverage and learning the art of leverage. And that's how you can get everything you want at a faster pace and more powerful, is learning the game of leverage. And I love to spend some time on one day talking about leverage, especially social, interpersonal, financial, is leverage. And that's what we're learning. The thing that I know we're getting close to an hour, but I want to just say, power is in standing together, waking up, treating each other with respect. And if we want to do something beyond the personal level, is like, I know Chris was talking about contributing to some of the organizations. We can contribute, but contribute to the ones that matter. It's just like a lot of the people get bonded out of jail. A lot of Black people get arrested and thrown in jail, and they don't deserve it. Brown people don't deserve it. Don't supposed to be in no jail. And they're don't have a lot of money anyway, a lot of them. And then they have to get bonded out of jail with money they don't even have. And so the bonding situation is just another way of racism, of robbing brown and Black people of resources that they don't even have in the first place. And so arresting them, throwing them in jail, and then charging them money they don't have keeps them further into poverty. And writing tickets, just like in St. Charles County, where you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly where you're talking about.
Driving through St. Charles County, I was always afraid I'm going to get a ticket, and I have to be a ticket. And a lot of those cops are standing out there because they know Black people are going to come through, and they're going to give them a ticket, and that's how they make their quotas.
It's called driving while Black in some areas.
While Black, and paying the quota and the ticket and the taxation for that little township.
Yeah, there's a lot of little townships throughout Missouri that were allowed to create. They would have no businesses. It could be 7 square blocks of living only, no income coming in except for policing. So think about that.
Wow.
And it would be next to a major intersection. So all
and where they
revenue,
get a lot of that money from is they wait for the Black person to come through and give them a ticket. And so they don't, they don't get it from the locals, they get it from the people who are coming through the neighborhood. Now, see, that's the part of the strategy, that's part of the stuff. So if you want to contribute to something, one thing I just thought of on this call is contribute to the bonding system. How to bond some of these people out of jail that don't supposed to be in there in the first place.
Yep.
And can't afford to get out.
We could spend a whole hour talking about the disproportionate amount of people of color in jails compared to last year. I have a nephew who's in prison, and he's going to do 40 years for something that he's Native American. So he's my half sister's son and very dark complected. Ironically, as a brother with blonde hair and blue eyes, almost the same exact crime, he got out with after 3 years. He's looking at 40 years for the same crime, and they're both drug offenses. So it's like mandatory sentencing in the state of Missouri still requires that you do all this time unless you're white and you have money, and then you can get out of it. But if you're dark and you're poor, you're doing the time. And it's really baffling to me. And if we really, and we could spend a whole nother hour, but if we could dig into like follow the money train, you're going to see that there's a lot more deeper, insidious ways that people are benefiting from seeing
well,
people.
Girl, you know, there's a lot to happen, a lot to handle. But, you know, I played the game, learned the game and played the game. And I've also learned how to play the black card at times and you know, when I needed to. So like I said, I learned a few tricks along the way. And you have to learn these tricks to get through life.
I would never use the damsel in distress card to get out of trouble, ever.
I've even seen you use that one.
Touche.
I just tell you my first experience of Ray, he'd ask me who the fuck I thought I was. Just so you know, in the first 3 days I met him, I was looking around, I'm like, what just happened?
You gotta make me sound like this real confrontive person, because you know people have had that conversation. We don't want Ray to train here because he's too confrontive. He's too this and he's too that. No, I know you guys have heard the conversation out there.
I am thrilled to have you at my training center. I'm just gonna say that out loud.
Listen,
bring it on, Ray.
I always needed someone like you because I am a rule breaker and a rebellion that can look good. Like I can make it look like I'm not doing that stuff, and you were always able to hold me accountable. And sometimes
like you ain't gonna get over on me, girl.
No, every once in a while I need someone to be that way. I mean, I married my husband because he's that way. Because he was like, "Listen, in Millie's world, and we're all living it, but I'm not going that way." And it just, you know, sometimes
there's too many sugar-coated people out there. We got enough of them. I
needed someone to hold me accountable.
You know, I know we're really tight on time, but you know, so you just said something. Sugar-coated people, and Millie, you were just saying that in training centers and confrontive. I'm not a confrontive person. I'm a pussycat actually, but I come from that background called, wait a minute, girl, don't get over on me, and like that. You know, and I think somebody needs to be like being real. I know you got to be real sometime, and but you know, we were talking about not letting the protests become mainstream, because that's when it loses power and people can take it for granted and take issues for granted. We allowed that to happen to the transformation movement. The transformation movement was really power on, taking certain stuff on, but over time, we allowed it, or some people just let it become mainstream. And when it becomes mainstream, it becomes kind of whitewashed,
airy-fairy,
and airy-fairy, and then airy-fairy becomes the thing of the day, and people do this airy-fairy. Like I'm kind of airy-fairy myself. I'm kind of cosmic myself, so I can't complain too much. But when it goes over the top, it becomes sold as transformation, and it's not. And it becomes another animal.
Nope.
And then gets main things, even with unethical behavior. And then transformation.
nothing else, I would rather do and be and continue this work. And thank you for the last thing that you said, because it's important. You know, it's important. I know it's important to the three of us that we have people like you that are having the work continue in that way. And it's it's up to us, because you have paved the way. You have paved the way, and it's up to us to actually have the roots continue to happen. You know, and I'm going to say you can count on us for that. You can count on us.
I know I can. That I can't do it alone, and I can't pull the whole wagon by myself. That's why I'm so glad that you guys are out there doing it and taking it on. I won't be doing it forever, but passing the baton to you guys, and I know it's in great hands. I'm still doing trainings a bit. I do the Hero's Quest, and I like to do a little pitch for that. People come to the Hero's Quest if they want to learn more about transformational distinctions, race style, because I'll take a distinction and I'll do all the intellectual, philosophical parts, but I also like to bring myself to it and interact with people, let people ask questions and that. And if they want to do that, just come to the Hero's Quest, HEROES.
We'll drop that URL in the comments for anybody who would like to make contact with Ray. They can also find you on Facebook. Yes, you have a Facebook page.
Find me on Facebook too. And we're in this together. You guys, me, a number of us, we're on the same team.
Yeah.
And we're in it together. We want people to keep learning at the real level of how to leverage their lives and navigate their lives and have life work. So
you can find Ray at the Heroes Quest, you said, .com, and you have a new page, right? Ray Blanchard is your Facebook page? Okay,
Dr. Ray Blanchard, DrRayblanchard, Dr. Ray Blanchard.
So find him on there. And then Millie, if you want to, where can people find you?
Well, I also want to say that we'll share your articles here, and if you can let us know how to link them up with the third part of your article on this particular subject, that would be amazing. You could text Chris or I. This weekend, I'm going to be in Raw Storytelling International. I'm super stoked about that. I'll be on Sunday. I'm not sure about the time. It's to be determined, and it is me telling raw stories for about 10 minutes. So this one's called The Accidental Awakening, and some of you guys might have seen it back in March. It's going to be extended tennis. I'm super excited to be asked to be on the international showcase. Also, you can find me at mymillicentuser.com, and you can also find me at Namaste Bitches. So that's my
everywhere, people. She's everywhere.
That's my alter ego, because I needed to. My ego's so big it split into two. So I want to just thank you, Ray, for being. I'll also drop those into the comments. I want to thank you so much for being here. You are amazing, and the work that you've done, and that you really have been the grandfather of this work for a lot of us. And I'm just so happy that you are here, still guiding us with your wisdom.
Yeah, well,
and I want to make sure we tell, and I want to make sure to let everybody know that you can find Chris Delgado at her riseuptolove.com. She's up to a bunch of happiness things right now that she's got going on. You can find me at amptrainings.com. We are in Missouri and Florida. Once we can get back in a room, we're waiting for it. Till then, you can sign up to do virtual trainings online, and it's going fantastic. So amptrainings.com, we'll drop that. We're on Instagram as well, and we will drop all of these amazing things that we are all up to in the comments for anyone to enjoy and participate in. And so, like Millie said, thank you, Ray, for all that you are to all of us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Love. All right.
See you soon.
Goodbye, Facebook.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
And we are off.
Yeah.